Welcome to another edition of Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. It was a rare weekend, free of any mixed martial arts, but we still have lots to chat about with John Ramdian and Robin Black. We're going to dive into the latest regarding Wanderlei Silva. A pair of fights have been added to UFC 178, and a former UFC fighter inks a deal with ONE FC. Mixed martial arts took the weekend off, and the focus of combat sports was towards Saul Canelo Alvarez, who edged past Erislandy Lara on Saturday night at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Canelo took the fight on a split decision with lots of outrage from the Lara camp, especially towards Judge Levy Martinez, who scored the bout 117-111 for Canelo. No one will paint this as a Fight of the Year candidate, with some debatable rounds throughout the fight. Promoter Oscar De La Hoya has stated Lara will not get a rematch and now moves to the back of the line. Vera, who spent 9 years in the UFC and went from highly touted future star to a fighter that would fail to live up to his potential, has now signed with the ONE FC organization out of Asia. Vera was cut earlier this year and last fought in August of last year against Ben Rothwell, where he was stopped in the third round. After the fight, it was revealed Rothwell tested for high levels of testosterone, but the win was not overturned. It's unknown if Vera is going to be competing at light heavyweight or in the heavyweight division for ONE FC. In a surreal interview with Tatami, Wanderlei Silva tells the outlet that he recently tested himself and has deemed himself clean and ready to fight within 2 months. Silva said he would like to fight Vitor Belfort or Luke Rockhold in his next outing. He also said the controversy of him fleeing a random drug test has not hurt his image, and the controversy was among an irrelevant half-dozen people on the internet, and he's at one of the most popular points of his entire career. And a pair of welterweight bouts has been added to UFC 178 on September the 27th in Las Vegas, as Patrick Cote will take on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Brian Ebersol will meet John Howard. Cote and Thompson are both on 3-fight win streaks, while Ebersol is coming off a pair of losses to James Head and Rick Story, while Howard is looking to bounce back from a decision loss to Ryan LaFleur. And I'm here with John Ramdian and Robin Black in a huge grudge fight over the weekend. Germany beats Argentina 1-0.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Is there kicking and punching involved? No?
There was kicking. There was a lot of falling. A guy even needed a stitch under his eye when he got decked in the face. There were headbutts.
Oh, he needed a stitch under his eye when he got decked in the face. And then a guy's leg got hit and he went, oh! And he goes flying through the air. That's
you know what happened to Anderson Silva?
Yeah, they broke that thing in half.
Destroyed his leg.
Yeah. I scored it 10-9 myself. Let's move on over to the world of mixed martial arts.
Real sports.
There are interviews, and then there are interviews that Wanderlei Silva conducted with Tatami. This is one of the most surreal interviews I've ever read. Wanderlei Silva gave us an update on his whole progress right now. He apparently tested himself. He's okay.
Good to go.
He's ready to fight in 2 months. Perfect, Wanderlei.
Title eliminator.
This guy has no concept that there is a punishment coming for him when he applies for a license. Like, not a thought in the world. He's ready to fight Luke Rockhold. He's ready to fight Vitor Belfort.
He'd like to fight Chael.
He'd like to fight anybody right now. He's good. When he was asked, has this harmed your image at all? His response, no. I'm at one of my most popular points in my career right now. It was a half-dozen irrelevant people on the internet who made a big deal out of this. He's not part of this planet, I don't think. Reading this interview was just, my jaw hit the desk reading this.
The thing is, you have to look at Wanderlei Silva's history, and through the ages of him fighting in Brazil and fighting in Pride, there were very few rules. It's like, yeah, well, everybody said there was testing in Japan, but there's no real testing in Japan. I was allowed to stomp guys in the head. That was okay for me to do that stuff. So Wanderlei Silva has been okay throughout his career. Why would he think that this time is any different than what occurred in the past?
Did his progress just stop in 2005? He just hasn't updated this. It's like having a GPS where you gotta update the maps every few years and get reacquainted with the rules and the regulations of where one fights.
Everybody has that one uncle. You know that one guy?
Uncle Vandy.
Yeah, and he still kind of uses the term colored and says all these really, really weird things that most of us don't agree with, and we just kind of go, it's Uncle Vandy, you know? Personally, I think that honestly, there is sort of an element, whether you're in politics, whether you're in business, whether you're in fighting, whatever it is, you just say sort of the context that you hope gets out there. I mean, that's a really modern thing. I think Wanderlei's using a very modern media tactic.
It's It's a tactic. I'll give you that.
I like it.
ONE FC, they have now signed Brandon Vera, and Brandon Vera is a talent that you go back to 2005, 2006, it looked like the sky was the limit for him. Everyone always points to that infamous interview where he believed he would be a dual champion at light heavyweight and heavyweight, and really never realized that potential in the UFC. He took that near year-long layoff after the Frank Mir win, and it really kind of stunted his growth. Came back, lost to Tim Sylvia, and it was just kind of one step forward, two back for him, and that was the story, essentially, of his career. Now, at this age, going over to ONE FC, where maybe he's in much less of a spotlight than the UFC provided, can he realize some of this potential? Is there enough time left in his career at this point? Because he's had a lot of injuries.
It depends on what his goal is. I mean, if your goal as a professional fighter is to go and compete and try to make some money and earn a living as a professional fighter, I think ONE FC makes sense. You're not fighting for the UFC. That's the biggest organization. And if you want to make the most money you can in the sport, UFC is the avenue. But if that's not happening, we talked about it before, Matt Hume is in charge of ONE FC. This is not one of these organizations like the IFL that's going to go under. ONE FC is going to last, and why not align yourself? If you can't align yourself with number 1 or number 2, align yourself with number 3. And we've seen in the past guys like Bibiano Fernandez are making $60,000 fighting for ONE FC. Ben Askren making big dollars fighting for ONE FC. Brandon Vera is still a name, and if you have him on the card, people are like, okay, I'll tune in. I saw what he did against Randy Couture.
There's actually some really good modern reporting out there right now that they are maybe the number 2 in the world. When you look at how big of arenas they fill, when you look at the concentration of population and then the area that they are, they're doing really, really good. And if you like to travel, if you like to go expand your horizons, that's a beautiful place to go, man. You can make some real money, see a different part of the world, have it run by a guy who understands fighting, not as this promotion thing, but as a fight. And, you know, if he can make 185 these days, I'd sure like to see him fight Ben Askren. Like, I'd really like to see that. And it's the kind of fight that ONE FC is not afraid to put a wrestler versus a jiu-jitsu guy, because it's all great fighting when you look at it right.
As we look ahead quickly to this week, we got Atlantic City and then Dublin, Ireland on Saturday. Is there one particular fight that stands out? Certainly a lot of focus on Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller, but personally, the atmosphere in Dublin, I mean, it's going to be dynamite on Saturday. I mean, we have two very unique cards this week.
I agree. I mean, it's hard to bet against Donald Cerrone because he brings it every single time, whether he wins or loses. He is in one of the most entertaining fights on the card. Conor McGregor, going to be a star, but for my money, I like the jiu-jitsu guy and Gunnar Nelson.
Oh, yeah, Brad Pickett, Ian McCall, that's my fight.
Time.
That should be a very good fight. And we'll have the weigh-ins for Atlantic City Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern here on Fight Network. More Fight News Now Extra is coming up.